news and notes.
Alrighty, our news and notes this week is sponsored by Shortboxed, the aforementioned Shortbox that Aaron was talking about. The easiest and safest way to buy and sell graded comics. You can download the Shortboxed app on iOS and Android. And please use our code OBP15 at checkout for $15 off your first order. That is OBP15 at checkout. And thank you so much to Shortbox for sponsoring our news and notes. Aaron, did you use OBP15? No answer means no, everyone.
God damn it.
He looks regretful right now. He did not use OBP. Don't be like Aaron, listeners of the show. Don't be like Aaron and go use OBP15 at checkout.
I'm an idiot.
I don't know what the deal you got for that Wolverine cover, but you could have gotten $15 off, Aaron. So don't be a silly little goose like Aaron and get some money off. You deserve it. Alrighty, off the top here we have Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are confirmed to appear in Marvel's Echo Disney Plus series. So after,
do you hear that, Chris?
What's that? What is that?
Do you hear that?
Is it an echo?
Shocker!
Who didn't see this coming, everybody? After the Hawkeye series wrapped up, there were rumors that Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio were reprising their roles as Matt Murdock, a.k.a. Daredevil, and Wilson Fisk, a.k.a. Kingpin, in Marvel's Echo Disney Plus series. Well, Cox and D'Onofrio have officially been confirmed for the series, which is currently shooting in Atlanta, and they will join Hawkeye breakout Alakwa Cox as Maya Lopez, a.k.a. Echo. So the Echo series is being developed by Eaton and Emily Cohen. I hope I'm saying that. E-T-A-N. Eaton. This was the creative team behind Tropic Thunder, King of the Hill, Idiocracy, and Men in Black 3. So a couple good stuff here. Along with that, though, Aaron, they'll be the writers and the executive producers on the show. Eaton also directed 2018's Holmes and Watson, for which he won a Razzie for Worst Director of that year. So
I haven't even watched that movie, and I know how terrible it is.
Good and bad is what we're saying. They have a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because Idiocracy is awesome.
Welcome to Costco. I love you. Welcome to Costco. I love you. Welcome to Costco. I love you.
And I think a lot of people still love King of the Hill quite a bit. Tropic Thunder is amazing. So
Tropic Thunder is amazing. King of the Hill is a classic.
Mhm.
Idiocracy is a sleeper hit. If you've never seen it, you need to go watch it. It's pretty much our country now.
We're slowly transforming into Idiocracy right now.
Yeah. Men in Black 3. I really liked it. I know it didn't
Me
get
too.
a lot of love in the theater, but that emotional baggage that came into the end of that show that movie was.
Is that the one
tearjerker.
that has James Brolin, or is that number 2?
Yeah.
Number 3 is the one with James
That's
Brolin.
number 3.
Yeah, I like that one quite a bit too, because I thought 2 was kind of boring, and the third one I felt like got at least this iteration of the franchise back on track. But I feel it might have been too far gone. Like people, I think, jumped off board after the first one, so it was kind of a dead franchise. Then, of course, speaking of Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, they of course tried to reboot that series later down the road, and it still just didn't have any legs. So Men in Black might just be dead.
I didn't
for a
watch
while.
that one. I've been wanting to see that one, but I have not seen it.
I didn't really like it, to be honest. It
Okay.
wasn't great. So there's currently no official release date for the series, but it is expecting to premiere on Disney Plus sometime in 2023. So very cool. What do you think about this? Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, officially back in the MCU. I mean, they have been since at least Hawkeye and Spider-Man No Way Home. But cool to see them maybe hopefully get a little bit of more of a spotlight here with this series and transition us into the eventual Daredevil series that they've already announced.
Yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, I just know I know that at the end of Hawkeye, whenever you see an off-screen or whenever you don't see an off-screen death, they're probably not dead. So Kingpin is not dead. You don't see a body. And then you also have, Charlie Cox being in, Spider-Man No Way Home. It's we all know what's happening. We all know it's in the works. It's just the time, that waiting, that season of waiting for the next one, which again, D'Onofrio and Cox as, those two sides of that coin, for that show. I'm so excited for, because they're both amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the rumor on the street right now is that during the series, Echo is going to be helping Daredevil find one of his friends, and that friend could possibly be Christian Ritter's Jessica Jones. So we could be getting Jessica Jones back in the MCU too. So which is awesome. Honestly, if they just brought back Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Jessica Jones, or Christian Ritter as Jessica Jones, I would be totally happy with that. Because honestly,
Well, they already did, and they announced that there's a name change. They're going to change it when they move it to Disney Plus. It's going to be AKA Jessica Jones.
Yeah, for the Netflix series, and again, like you're saying, maybe that could be little hints. We're trying to read the tea leaves here, see what Marvel's moving, their chess pieces, and maybe them making that name change means they're going to eventually bring Jessica Jones back as well.
I hope that we see her in Hulk.
Oh, that'd be great.
She-Hulk.
Yeah, Jessica Jones and Jennifer Walters are often teaming up because, again, Jessica Jones is a private investigator. You've got Jennifer Walters is a lawyer, so they obviously work hand in hand. This is also why Daredevil's often working with both as well. So you could definitely see those, that trio getting together. I would love to see that trio together in a Disney Plus series. That might be too much to ask, maybe, but I know when we had Charles Soule on the show here, he said he was a former attorney and he loved that corner of the Marvel Universe, all the attorneys, the private eyes, because it's ground level. They can work on smaller issues, do some actual heroism without having to be a superhero, quote unquote superhero. So yeah, I'm very excited for this Echo series. I feel like the more we're hearing about it, the more I'm excited. And Alaqua Cox was great, in Hawkeye. Her, of course, being the first deaf superhero. You also had, I'm forgetting her name now, but she was in the Eternals, the speedster. She was also deaf as well. So I'm glad that they're doing stuff like this. So I also, wasn't Alaqua Cox, she was the first amputee superhero as well. So yeah. But anyway, Aaron, go ahead and take us into our next bit of news here. We're going to stay with the MCU for this episode, everyone. Just bear warning right now. All of our news and notes, including our main topic, will be Marvel.
Okay, Sony Pictures is reportedly planning a new Spider-Man trilogy. Tom Holland has yet to sign on. So it's being reported by Hollywood insider Jeff Snyder, aka the Ankler. That's a terrible superhero name. The Ankler. That Sony is, he'll cut your ankles. That Sony is planning a new trilogy of Spider-Man films. They want Tom Holland back for the role, but Holland has yet to sign on to a second trilogy. And here is what Snyder reported. Okay, so Sony may not have the biggest bench in terms of franchises, but it has wisely made a deal with Marvel Studios to get its marquee character Spider-Man into the MCU. Smart, okay. So, which helped make the studio's solo Spidey movies must-sees, even more so. And while plans are in motion for another Spidey trilogy starring Tom Holland, he hasn't actually signed a deal yet. So the plans remain unofficial for now. That said, I'm sure that more Spidey adventures with Holland are a top priority for Rothman and company, which is also counting on him as the anchor of its budding Uncharted franchise as well, which, from what I have heard, the Uncharted movie wasn't that great. I didn't see it, but I haven't heard good things. Sony producer Amy Pascal previously implied that a new trilogy was in the works, and that was back in December. She confirmed Marvel and Sony were already actively developing the fourth Spider-Man movie. Pascal went on to say, and we're producers, so we always believe everything will work out. I love working with Kevin. We have a great partnership along with Tom Rothman, who runs Sony and has been instrumental, a great leader with great ideas. I hope it lasts forever. But as we all know, it really does. Marvel president Kevin Feige also commented this past weekend on Thor Love and Thunder world premiere. Amy and I are talking about it. Yes, we're actively beginning to develop where the story heads next, which I only say outright because I don't want fans to go through any separation trauma like what happened after Far From Home. That will not be occurring this time. So it sounds like a shorter timeline between, movies. So
that's Spider-Man in general, right?
Yeah,
we've been getting Spider-Man movies at a quicker rate than any other franchise. Like, remember we talked about how in between Guardians 2 and eventually Guardians 3, we would have already gotten 3 Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, what's the first one? Is that No Way Home? Homecoming. Thank you. Sorry.
Homecoming, Far From Home,
and No Way Home. Yeah, those all came out in conjunction in between Guardians 2 and eventually Guardians 3, which comes out next year. That's crazy because Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the biggest franchises for Marvel.
I met a guy this weekend who has never seen Guardians of the Galaxy.
That seems to be kind of a trend as well for me. Like people who are even a fan of the MCU or a fan of Marvel in general, so for some reason have missed Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a true crime on the nerd culture in general. If you have not watched Guardians of the Galaxy and you're a fan of these characters, do yourself a favor. In my opinion, it is the best corner of the MCU. It's my favorite. I actually have both my Guardians 1 and Volume 2 posters are right beside me here in my studio. I've been widely vocal about how much I love the series, and we'll be talking about them here in just a moment with our third piece of news. But to go along with Spider-Man, yeah, I think that this is kind of a no-brainer. Sony would be extremely dumb to not continue this with Tom Holland. We talked about this kind of before the show as well, Aaron. Just dump the money in his front yard. Whatever money you have in your account, Sony, back it up into his yard, dump it there, and see if he says no. I'm gonna guess he probably doesn't say no.
I don't think he will. He'll say something like yes.
He'll say something in British because he is British.
I was trying to be something creative, like no, let's go home, or
no, get off my home, get away from my home.
Get off my yard, get out of my yard, because he's old Tom Holland.
Yeah, this is old Tom Holland. He's in his late 20s now, so he still looks like he's 20. But yeah, and I think regardless, let me ask you this, Aaron. What do you think the franchise goes if, let's say, they sign Tom Holland, or like we might as well just say when they sign Tom Holland, he will come back. But because he's said multiple times that he wants to continue to play, he'll play Spider-Man forever, is what he said multiple times. I'm assuming it's just a thing on contracts and money and all that good stuff. So where do you think the franchise goes?
He doesn't seem like one of those guys that's really too like focused. Like I'm sure I'm wrong, but to me, when I look at and I watch Tom Holland, he doesn't seem like one of those guys that's really super focused on the money. You know?
I mean, probably not. And he's not like really into it, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I feel like if the fans enjoy it, and he seems like a true to fan kind of actor. If the fans want it, he'll continue it. If it's not what they want anymore, he'll move on. You know, which is why I'm kind of surprised about the whole Uncharted thing. But I think that he'll take it on. And as far as where the Spider-Man franchise goes, I really hope that they move towards like the Green Goblin. Not the Green Goblin, but like the Hobgoblin.
Sure.
I would really like to see a quality version of like Venom and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways that they could go.
Maybe a transition to Miles Morales. Maybe a little partnership / training of Miles eventually. He's already been made mention in Homecoming by Childish Gambino. He said, "Hey, my nephew is in this city," and of course he plays the character of the Prowler in No Way Home. He doesn't actually show up in the costume, of course, but yeah, Miles is in this universe somewhere. He's probably just far too young. I'm assuming once Peter gets into his, mid to late 20s is when they'll introduce Miles. And in the Ultimate Comics, Peter essentially sacrifices himself during a battle with the Green Goblin, and that's when Miles takes over as Spider-Man. So yeah, I mean, and again, by that time we'll already have seen the second and third installment of Into the Spider-Verse. So Across the Spider-Verse, I think, is the name of the title. So Miles, if he isn't already, will be a household name. So therefore, it would make an easy transition. It would make sense for them to just transition over to Miles. And I still remember when they first announced Tom Holland as the new Spider-Man back during Civil War. And I remember being very bullish about the fact that I wanted Miles Morales instead of Peter, which in retrospect, I'm glad they went with Peter because it makes sense narratively to start with Peter and then eventually work your way to Miles. But Miles deserves his time in the sun. I think it is his time. Peter has been done many a times. He's done well with Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield. And I think it's time to move on to, in my opinion, the modern interpretation of Spider-Man, which is, of course, Miles Morales.
Agreed.
Alrighty, let's go into our last bit of news here. And we kind of already mentioned it already, but Chris Pratt calls Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 a, quote, masterpiece. So we don't know much about James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but we do know much.
But I know how to love you.
We do know that it's going to be the last film that Gunn makes for the franchise. During a recent interview with Digital Spy, Pratt was asked about the film, and this is what he said. "It's fantastic. James Gunn just watched a rough assembly the other day. I called him yesterday. We FaceTimed, and he's very, very proud of the work that everyone's done. He said it's the best work any of us has ever done. It feels very, very confident. The script was amazing." And Pratt also added, "I can say with utter confidence that he has made a true masterpiece, and I cannot wait for people to see it. It's James Gunn. He did all 3 movies, which is really rare and really special in the world of box office trilogies." So here's why I'm hesitant, Aaron. So I'm scrolling through Instagram today and I see Chris Pratt post a picture of him and Bryce Dallas Howard thanking her for being a part of the Jurassic World trilogy over the last 8 years. And he, at one point in the post, calls the trilogy fantastic. He's very boisterous about how amazing this new trilogy of Jurassic films were. Now, I can't say much for the last one because I have not seen the newest, the most recent one that came out this year, but they're not good from what I understand. At least the first two aren't good, in my opinion. And it just seems that Chris Pratt is just ever optimistic. And I appreciate that about him. He's got somewhat of an Andy Dwyer in him that I really appreciate. So to hear him say that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a masterpiece means that, in my mind, it's probably going to be a really good movie. But I don't know if it's quote unquote a masterpiece. He seems to really be like overzealous with some of his compliments when it comes to films that he's in.
I don't know. For some reason, he's going very much the way of the Tom Cruise. He's just kind of getting weird, man.
People are starting to turn on Mr. Pratt here, and for many reasons. A, he's picking roles in films that some people believe he shouldn't be in, aka voicing Mario and voicing Garfield in these new animated movies that are coming out here soon. People think that he's like this hardcore, not to get political here on the show, but people think he's this hardcore Republican that's pro-life and all this stuff, which again, regardless of what your beliefs are, either way, you shouldn't hate a celebrity for that. I don't think that's obviously Aaron and I have voiced our opinions and we are definitely the opposite side of that. But I don't think that's why you should hate someone. I think Chris Pratt has always seemed like a true darling of Hollywood, and his surge to the top has been very abrupt. And that's probably the reason why people don't trust him, is because he went from this very funny, kind of doofy Andy Dwyer type to this rock solid Star-Lord, leading man in Hollywood. And people see that surge in stardom and they go, whoa. This is not what I signed up for. Yeah. This Chris Pratt guy, he's getting a little too big too quickly, and people don't like that. So I'm still a big fan of Chris Pratt. I'm still a big fan of Star-Lord. We'll be talking about him in just a moment in the movie review of Thor: Love and Thunder. He's in there briefly, but I'm still excited about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. James Gunn has done no wrong with the Guardians at all. Guardians, again, is my favorite corner of the MCU. And I always like to share this story, Aaron. I know I've told you the story before. If you remember, James Gunn went through some hot water with some of the things he had said earlier in the early 2010s on Twitter, and Marvel and Disney essentially cut ties with him and said that he was not going to direct Volume 3, which again eventually was overturned. But up to that point, after Guardians 2, we weren't sure where the Guardians franchise was going. It was very up in the air. And I have such a weird emotional connection with those characters. I love that entire Rat Pack team. There's just a bunch of misfits who chose their family. It's telling the most human story in the MCU with a bunch of characters who aren't human. And I just love that. Right. So in Infinity War, when we see them for the first time and Rubber Band Man plays, I legitimately started crying. I was like so excited to see them again, because up to that point in Infinity War, we hadn't seen them since the end of Volume 2. And no one knew what the future of the Guardians had. Now, of course, again, we've heard that James Gunn is coming back and everything is good to go. But I have a weird emotional attachment to these guys, and I'm very excited to see this Volume 3. Are you excited at all for Volume 3?
I am. I will talk about it a little bit with, when we talk about Thor: Love and Thunder, so I won't go into it too much. But yeah, there's been a lot of issues that have kind of gone into the Guardians of the Galaxy situation. I mean, even issues with Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
And I think I want to
say come out he's not like afraid to say anything in the media. Like Dave Bautista will say whatever he thinks in front of any microphone, which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I want to say maybe possibly something with Bradley Cooper, but I don't remember, so I'm just going to move on from that. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I will definitely be interested, especially the fact that, not to take away from what you're about to read, but Zoe Saldana coming back as Gamora, even seeing Nebula again, because I think she's just such a cool character. Not only that, but Karen Gillian's just amazing. And then, Will Poulter as Adam Warlock. So I'm
so excited about that.
And then even Sylvester Stallone. I mean, there's such an amazing cast here that you would never expect to kind of jive together, and it works so well, and I love it. And it's like, you can't help but smile when you watch these movies, because not only do they just have this interesting dynamic amongst the team, but the music is there, the graphics are there, and the practical effects are there, and it's just the character development has always been so good in the
Mhm.
Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So yes, I'm excited for Volume 3 to a degree.
There you go. Yeah, and I think this comes out May 5th, 2023. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This will be my most anticipated film automatically. I don't care what else comes out in 2023. Marvel could come out during D23 or during San Diego Comic-Con here in a couple of weeks and say, "Oh, we're doing Avengers 5." Or what is it? It'd be 5, is that right? Yeah, it'd be 5. Avengers 5 in 2023. I would be like, still Guardians of the Galaxy. That's the one for me. I love these characters so much. And I've always said this, and I'll end this topic here with this. If you can get me to fall in love with the tree and a talking raccoon, that is like, I say that about all film, all media. It doesn't matter. If you get me to fall in love with those two characters, you're doing something right with your story. That's good storytelling, because that shouldn't work. Remember what the MCU was when the Guardians came out. Remember where we were at. We were very still surface level MCU. We weren't into the cosmic, timey-wimey multiverse stuff like we are in
It
today.
shouldn't have worked, but it did.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Well, that'll do it for our news and notes this week. Thank you so much to Shortboxed for sponsoring our news and notes. We appreciate them so much. But Aaron, let's get into our main topic this week, which is, of course, talking about Thor: Love and Thunder. But before we get over to that review, Aaron, let's take a quick break and we will be right back.